My long estranged sister knocked on my door at midnight, begging to stay the night, and what she revealed after that turned everything upside down.
Emil, were chilling on the couch, watching a movie, when all of a sudden, I heard a knock on the door.
I heard my estranged sister calling out to me for help. My sister, 24 years old and female, and I haven't spoken in 4 years, and I really can't stand her. I was very taken aback that she'd even shown up at my place or that she even knew where I lived. I was about to shoo her away and threaten to call the police when I realized she was actually asking for help, saying she was being chased and that I needed to let her in immediately, or else her life would be in danger. She sounded very hysterical, and I didn't even know if she was joking or not, since she has a history of nasty pranks, which is what led me to sever ties with her in the first place. I hesitated for a few minutes, but my fiancé looked really concerned. Even though she knew my sister and I don't talk anymore, she insisted that I open the door in case my sister was actually in danger. Without thinking much, I opened the door to her, and she barged in and slammed the door behind her. As soon as I let her in, I regretted it because she was smirking and holding some really old piece of paper in her hand, which she started reading out. She didn't waste a second either. She grabbed my fiancé by the wrist and was reading out the contents of that paper with great joy. I could see that my fiancé was just as confused as I was, and it took me a few seconds to process what she was reading out loud so happily. When I realized it and got over my initial shock, I immediately opened the door and pushed my sister out with all my might. I could still hear her continuing to read that letter outside the door and cackling like a maniac, like she'd done something hilarious. I yelled at her to get lost and that I was calling the cops, so she left, still laughing, but the damage had already been done, and my fiancé was pissed. What my sister was reading out was a love letter that my ex-girlfriend had written to me several years ago. I had tucked it away safely in a book at my parents' house and forgotten about it. The only problem was that my ex-girlfriend was my now fiancé's cousin, and I never told her the truth about it. That letter just confirmed that I told her a little white lie, so she's now furious about this, and rightfully so. The real reason I didn't tell my fiancé anything about the relationship I had with her cousin was because my fiancé has always been competing with her cousin ever since she was a kid. Unfortunately, she thinks she's always lost to her cousin. My fiancé thinks her cousin is prettier, has a better job, and gets more love from the family as well, so she's kind of insecure about it and has told me about it several times. We've been together for 3 years, and the first time she showed me a family photo from Christmas, I realized that this cousin of hers was my ex, but I didn't say anything because that would just heighten her insecurities regarding the rivalry. We'd just been dating for 3 months at that point, so I didn't say anything just to spare her feelings. When she introduced me to her family for the first time at Thanksgiving, I did meet her cousin, and it was tense and weird, but we didn't address it in front of my fiancé. I pulled my ex aside to talk about this when my fiancé wasn't around and requested her never to speak of our relationship when my fiancé is around and to keep me out of their rivalry and competition. She was a little annoyed but agreed to it, thankfully, for old time's sake. We just dated for 1 year when I was in college anyway, so it wasn't like we were very serious about each other either, so she agreed to keep it quiet. Unfortunately, my fiancé had walked in on us having that conversation but hadn't heard anything, luckily. She was really suspicious and didn't like the fact that I was even talking to her cousin and had caught on to the way we seemed to be familiar with each other already. The fact that she knew we went to college together and were close to each other didn't help the situation either. It took a lot of work, but I did convince her that I didn't know her cousin at all and was just being polite to her the other day. Since then, I've managed to keep this a secret only because I want my fiancé to be happy, because I want her to know that to me, she's the most beautiful and competent woman to ever exist, and nobody else matters. It's honestly and truly just a little white lie that I told her for her own good and to avoid making her feel even more insecure about her rivalry with her cousin. That's all it is, honestly. But yesterday, while reading that old letter, my psycho sister read out some things that only people who were close to me would know. She also made sure to mention that this letter was written by my ex, mentioning her by name, so my fiancé knows for a fact that this letter was written by her cousin, and it's totally real. There's just no denying the truth anymore. My fiancé is inconsolable and has been refusing to talk to me because I betrayed her and lied to her for years. She's been crying in the bedroom and has only come out for meals so far and has slammed the door in my face every time I've tried to talk to her and explain my reasons. I don't know how to make this right, and I really don't want to lose her. I love her more than life itself. I don't even know if what I did was right or not. Am I the asshole for lying to my fiancé about not knowing her cousin because I didn't want to make their rivalry worse? I did what you guys suggested and tried to talk to my fiancé through the bedroom door itself. Neither of us had been to work because of how devastating this was, and I was pretty desperate to make amends. So, I sat right outside her door and tried to explain my side of the situation to her. I told her the truth, And while she didn't open the door or show any signs to even acknowledge what I was saying, I went on talking. After I was done, she opened the door, and I could see that she'd been crying. Her eyes were all red and swollen, and I felt awful for being the one to put her in such a position where she had to choose between me and herself. I was literally on my knees, begging for her to forgive me and telling her that I would never, ever want to hurt her on purpose. I ended up crying as well because these past 2 days had been incredibly hard on me as well, and I had no one to blame apart from myself and, well, my sister too, a little bit, but mostly myself. She hugged me, and we ended up crying together for a bit. I held on for several minutes because this could very well be the last time she ever let me hug her at all, given what I'd done. After a few minutes, we broke apart, and once the tears had been wiped off, she composed herself and told me that she didn't know what to say right now and needed some time to think things over. She said that she was too overwhelmed and emotional to decide on our relationship right now, so she needed some time to think. I asked her if she still loved me, and she reassured me that she did, so that's some consolation at least. I don't know what she's going to decide, but whatever her decision is, I'm going to respect it no matter what. I'm the one who messed up, so now I'm the one who has to face the consequences. It's all fair, and I've accepted it. Even if she decides to break off our engagement and dump me over this, I'll have to accept it. I know what I did was out of concern for her, but it doesn't change the fact that I lied to her for years and even forced our friends to keep this a secret. The only person who wasn't in my control, unfortunately, was my sister. Several people asked me why exactly I'd gone no contact with her all those years back. The reason was that my sister, at my birthday party, decided to pull a disgusting prank where she faked a medical report and told everyone that she was dying of cancer, so this might be the last birthday that she gets to celebrate with us, since she might not even make it to her own birthday next year. Everyone made a big deal of it, including myself, and she totally ruined my birthday. She only announced that this was all an elaborate prank 2 days later. She'd always had a reputation of being a prankster, but this was taking things too far in my opinion. That birthday was really special for me as well because it was the first time I was paying for everything myself, from the cake to the streamers. I had just started at my first job before that, so this was my little treat to everyone in my life, but she ruined it all for me just for attention. We had a huge fight over it, and then we just never spoke again because she refused to apologize for any of it either. My parents didn't like the prank either, but they decided not to intervene in our relationship because we were both adults now, and they didn't want to take sides, which seemed kind of ridiculous. For a year after that, she'd sent me hateful messages from fake accounts, but then she moved away to another country for work, and then I neither heard from her nor about her and almost forgot about her existence until the other day. I called my dad a day after she showed up and asked why she was back here. He told me that she'd come back a week ago since she was relocating back here. She'd been living with them ever since she came back and had been going through all of our old stuff, since she didn't start her new job for another couple of days. They had no idea that she'd found that letter and would do something so psychotic just to stir trouble in my life. My dad thanked me for not pressing charges, but the truth is, I forgot about that only because my fiancée was so mad, or else I most definitely would have called the cops on her. I do still believe that I should have been honest with my fiancée, but God, I really wish my sister hadn't shown up at all. She ruined everything, which is what she always does, so I shouldn't be surprised. I just hope my fiancé forgives me because I can't imagine life without her anymore. We resumed our normal day-to-day activities after our last conversation, but things were still strained and weird between us, and all our conversations were short and painful. It felt even worse than when we weren't speaking, truth be told, but I was ready to wait for her to come around or break up with me, whatever she chose to do. Thankfully, she chose to stay with me. She sat me down this morning, since it was the weekend, and we were in no rush anyway. I was scared for my life when she started talking, very honestly. I really thought she was going to dump me now, but she said that she wanted to stay with me and make things work. She realized that the reason I'd even lied to her was because of this stupid rivalry that she had with her cousin. She told me that she blamed her aunt for it because, ever since she was a child, her aunt had always made it a point to compare her to her cousin and put her down, which just fueled the competition between the two of them. She'd grown up with her family close by, since most of them lived on the same block and were all neighbors, so they got together frequently, which meant she got compared to her cousin frequently as well. It was awful, but she got used to it, so she began to think that this was normal and didn't even grow out of it as an adult. She understood why I hid my past relationship with her cousin, and even though she doesn't think it makes it right, she understands, and she wants to give me another chance. I was overjoyed, and I ended up telling her all that I'd been thinking about in these past few days when she wasn't speaking to me. I told her that I'd never lied to her about anything else, and the only thing I'd ever wanted was for her to be happy. The only reason I'd lied to her about this was to protect her feelings, but now I know that it was kind of messed up on my part, and I truly was sorry for it. I'd said it 1,000 times already, and I was ready to say it another 1,000 times if that's what it took to make her stay. I told her how much I loved her and how she was the only woman I cared about. We ended up turning it into a really tearful and emotional conversation yet again, but by the end of it, I think both of us felt a lot better about getting our feelings all out there. I won't say that things are all back to normal now, but we're trying to make things better together. I know that we love each other enough and can make this work. She's decided to cut her toxic aunt and cousin out of her life altogether, so they're not invited to the wedding. This was a huge deal for her because her family is very close, so not inviting a relative to your wedding is a huge insult and could have serious repercussions. But when she told her parents about her decision not to invite them and explained why, her parents were really respectful and even sympathetic. They actually told her that they wish she'd told them all about this before, instead of dealing with the constant pressure to outdo her cousin all by herself, and maybe they would have been able to help. But she never spoke out about it, and so her parents never got to know either, since her aunt and cousin were very sly and clever about when and where they made their snarky comments and insults. The invitations are supposed to be sent in a few weeks, and if the rest of her family has anything to say about it, we'll get to know then. But my in-laws have told my fiancée that, no matter what, they're by her side. Seeing that really made me think that maybe it's about time that I told my parents about how I wanted them to stand up for me as well and make sure my sister doesn't ever bother me again. I'm sure it was them who had told her my address when she asked for it before she came by that day, but now I'm not interested in the past and only want to ensure nothing of the sort happens in the future. I want to make sure she doesn't have the opportunity to try anything funny at my wedding. So, I called my parents and told them that now it was about time that they picked a side, because my sister was old enough to understand what she was doing was messed up, and her pranks and jokes just weren't funny anymore. She needed to stay the heck away. I was even planning to file for a restraining order against her to make sure of it, because I just don't want her bothering me ever again. They tried to tell me that they didn't want to get involved in our petty fights, but I told them that there was nothing petty about these fights anymore. She was out of control and, very frankly, psychotic and scary. The way she'd behaved the other day was something only a maniac would do, and yet they were still letting her stay at their house. So, it was very clear to me that, whether they admitted it or not, they were supporting her in a way. I told them that they needed to pick a side now, because their being neutral had led to a lot of problems for me. They needed to step up as parents and stop letting their not-so-little girl be a crap human being. If they still weren't willing to get involved, then they didn't deserve to be involved in my life in any capacity at all. So, I gave them an ultimatum and told them that they could either kick my sister out, or I'd cut them off, because I was done letting them mollycoddle my sister after all the horrible things she did and pretend like they were being neutral when it was so obvious that they were only saying that to make me feel better, but they knew very well what they were doing. They told me that they would need some time to think things over, and even though they shouldn't need so much time to think about whose side to take in a situation like this, I still agreed. My fiancée told me she's proud of me for finally standing up to my parents, and we're actually preparing for the worst. They might say that they want to continue letting my sister live with them until she finds a place to live, and if they do say that, then that's it for me. I'm cutting them out of my life for good. I don't know why she hasn't been able to find a place yet, since that was supposed to happen a few days ago, but that's none of my business. I couldn't care less about her. I'm so pissed off right now, I could punch a wall. My parents called me today, and before I could say anything, they put me on the phone with my sister. I hung up immediately, so my sister texted me from my mom's phone to explain that the reason she hadn't been able to find a place yet was that she wasn't relocating for a new job but because she'd been fired from her previous one and had burned through all her savings already, so she didn't have anywhere to go now. She asked me not to put our parents in such a position because they didn't want to lose either of us and said that she was sorry for the stupid thing she did, but I'm not buying it. It wasn't just a random stupid thing that she did without thinking twice. She must have asked my parents about my situation with my fiancé, because my parents had also known I wanted them to pretend like they didn't recognize my ex-fiancé's cousin when they saw her. So, they told her everything that they knew, and that's why she'd shown up at my door with that letter with the sole purpose of stirring up some drama for the fun of it. I'm sure my parents didn't mean for it to happen, but they'd been the ones to tell my sister personal information regarding the connection between my fiancé, myself, and my ex, and my address. The actions of my sister were far from a trivial jest. Her scheme was meticulously planned, a calculated strike rooted in her relentless need to sow chaos. She had clearly gone to great lengths, just as she had years ago, digging through old memories and private details to unearth that letter. Her efforts were not spontaneous, they were deliberate, a premeditated attempt to upend my life. In response, I sent her a text, making it clear that her apologies held no weight with me. I had reached my limit, and my only desire was to sever ties with her and my parents entirely. It was painfully evident that my parents had chosen her side, favoring their wayward daughter over me. I accepted their decision, albeit with a heavy heart, and blocked their numbers to shield myself from further contact, at least for the foreseeable future. This morning, as I prepared to leave for work, my father appeared at my doorstep, his face a mix of frustration and sorrow. He revealed that my mother had been devastated since I blocked them, her tears a constant reminder of the rift I had created. He demanded that I apologize, not only to them but also to my sister, and work toward reconciliation. He accused me of insolence, branding me as a spoiled child tearing our family apart. His words struck me as utterly absurd, igniting a fire of indignation within me. I wasn't the one who had orchestrated this betrayal, I wasn't the one who had invaded someone's home with malicious intent. My anger boiled over, and we erupted into a heated verbal confrontation, our voices echoing through the quiet morning. Each accusation he hurled felt like a denial of the pain my sister had inflicted, a refusal to acknowledge the gravity of her actions. Thankfully, my fiancée, who had not yet left for the day, stepped in just as the argument threatened to spiral further. With a calm yet firm resolve, she told my father to leave, warning that she would not hesitate to involve the police if he and my sister persisted in harassing us. Her strength in that moment was a lifeline, grounding me when I felt consumed by rage. My father, undeterred, scoffed at her threat, claiming he feared no consequences. His defiance pushed me to a breaking point. With no other recourse, I physically ushered him out of our home, just as I had done with my sister days earlier. The act of forcing my own father out felt like a betrayal of everything I valued about family, yet his refusal to see reason left me no choice. My hands trembled with a mix of fury and guilt as I shut the door behind him. As he retreated, my father shouted that they wanted nothing more to do with me, declaring that they would not attend our wedding. His words, though meant to wound, brought an unexpected sense of relief. My fiancée and I exchanged a glance, silently agreeing that their absence might be for the best. The decision to pursue a restraining order against my sister and parents solidified in my mind. I had already reached out to my lawyer, and we planned to file the necessary paperwork tomorrow. The thought of taking such a drastic step against my own family weighed heavily on me, but their actions had left me with no alternative. My sister's calculated cruelty and my parents' refusal to hold her accountable had eroded any trust I once had in them. Reflecting on this ordeal, I couldn't help but wonder how things had spiraled so far. My sister's history of malicious pranks had always been a source of tension, but I never imagined she would stoop to such a level of vindictiveness. Her return to our hometown, armed with personal information my parents had carelessly shared, revealed a side of her that was not just mischievous but deeply destructive. My parents' neutrality, which I once saw as an attempt to remain impartial, now felt like tacit approval of her behavior. Their failure to intervene, to set boundaries for her, had enabled this chaos to unfold. I thought back to the years of silence between my sister and me, the way her pranks had escalated from childish to cruel, culminating in that devastating birthday when she faked a terminal illness. That moment had been the breaking point, the reason I cut her out of my life. Yet, even now, my parents seemed unwilling to confront the reality of who she had become. As I sat with my fiancée later that day, we discussed the future, not just our wedding, but the life we wanted to build together. Her unwavering support through this turmoil reminded me why I had fought so hard to preserve her trust. The pain of my lie about her cousin still lingered, but her forgiveness gave me hope that we could move forward. The decision to exclude my family from our wedding, while painful, felt necessary to protect our peace. I couldn't allow my sister's chaos or my parents' complicity to cast a shadow over our day. Filing the restraining order would be a final step in drawing a line, a declaration that I would no longer tolerate their intrusion into my life. Though the thought of cutting ties with my parents brought a pang of grief, I knew it was the only way to safeguard the future I envisioned with my fiancée, a future built on trust, love, and the freedom to live without fear of betrayal.